All right, so day six. Pleased with the way that we're competing out there. Our defense, I think, has really made a lot of strides here. It's been fun the last couple of days to see them really understand what they're doing. The communications increase, see them cut loose, play a little bit faster. We've kind of slowed down that install defensively. I think it's been really good for us. Those guys are really communicating, they understand what we're trying to do there, and as we're adding things, it's fitting pretty good. I think as you go through it, quarterback play, Chandler's played really well. With the exception, probably Saturday wasn't his best day, but really other than that, it's 5 really good days. He's got a really good command of the offense and doing a great job with it. I think our first group on the offensive line has done a pretty good job, for the most part. We've got to continue to get who's going to be, 8, 9, 10. And that's where I think we got to get is where we got to figure out, that depth piece. And we've got a bunch of guys that are capable of it, that are competing for it. We just got to keep putting them in those situations to do it. I think offensively, naturally, when you get to day 6, some of the install starts to add up on a little bit of those young guys. And we've got a really good veteran group, but a lot of our depth, a lot of those guys are going to be from those young guys. So, we got to keep making them battle it out. We're going to scrimmage on Saturday. That'll be our first scrimmage. It'll be really good to see, get everybody off the field, go out there and, it'll be live. We've had live periods in pretty much every full pad practice we're in, which, for us, the whole thing about this is just increasing the intensity and the urgency in everything we're doing. So the kids have embraced it. They've done a great job with it. For us, it's just a lot of things to clean up right now. And naturally, that's the way it's going to be. But, we got to continue to do that with urgency.
So with new coaches, is some of this like judging what kind of questions you're getting from players or how many questions you're getting from players? Or you just kind of judge by how fast they're running? How much, in terms of how much they're picking up?
Yeah, to me, it always comes down to the communication, how fast they're playing. The first couple of days, the communication is kind of crickets out there, right? There's not a lot of communication, which means we don't really know what we're doing there. And the play speed, it's not where you want it to be. As you get today, really probably 4, 5, and today 6, the communication, it's that's what we ask for. We want overwhelming communication, right? We want everyone out there to know what we're doing. There are no secrets. The communication has improved each and every day. And then naturally the play speed comes with that. I'm hearing guys that are directing traffic out there, telling them where to go, and then we're fitting it from there. So that to me is what tells you. We watch the tape together as a staff. So, we're listening to each other. We're talking about what we're trying to get done here. So there's a good understanding on both sides of the ball what each side's trying to accomplish there. And you're starting to see it show up more and more and faster. So, that tells me, between watching it together, right, and you start hearing those things, and then you watch it out there on the practice field and you hear the communication, you see the play speed, that's, that tells you, you're going in the right direction there.
So did you have a long-term goal, what you wanted to accomplish after all the practices? And did you have a short-term goal, what we need to do as we build spring practice along?
Well, the long-term goal, right, and it's hard to measure, but, like I talked about going into this spring, when you are as close as we've been, right, you just got to tighten the screws on everything that you do. And what I want is I want the same urgency every single day from everybody in the building, players, coaches, everyone. And that's where I think you turn the corner, right, and you increase the intensity. And how do you do that? Well, you make more competition periods. You make things where, shoot, right now is the time. You make them live. You make them tackle. You make them strain for the extra yards, right? You do 9-on-7 inside run, and you tee it up, and you have quarters fits, and there's extra hats in there, and the running backs have to run through it. And, you do the things that are going to take to win games when you're in crunch time. So, for us, that's the long-term goal, is to get where our urgency level is higher. And I think for us, it's the consistency piece. Last year we had big moments in the year where we had really good wins, and we followed it up with really bad losses. And a lot of that's self-inflicted, and it's not handling the highs very well. So for us as a team, growing up, if we're practicing and we have the urgency each and every day, then our play needs to stay here. It can't dip and go up and down. So for us, that's what we've talked about more than anything long-term, is the consistency in the work that we do, being able to handle success better than what we did last year. And in the short term, the way you get there is you chip away at it every day. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So every day you want to see improvement across the board. Naturally, people aren't going to have their best day every day. You want them to come back and compete to have a better day. So to me, it's you set the end goal, right? right? You figure out the plan, the practice plan that you're going to do to get there, and then you hold them accountable. You grade it every day, right? The things that you want, you promote. The things that you don't want, you correct immediately, and you get them fixed. And if you don't get them fixed, and the guy behind you that'll fix them and do them right, he'll play. So that's just where we're at. Is it's just an urgency deal and a consistency in that urgency so that we can play at the upper end of where we played last year and not have the peaks and valleys.
With Harvey, he played a lot as a freshman last year. What's the next step for him, and what does he need to do here, but also in August to maybe even be a number one receiver for you?
Well, I think for him, what he's got to do is continue to work hard in the weight room, and he has. He's gained weight from last offseason. I mean, he's working really hard at that part of it, which a guy like him, he's never had an offseason. He played 3 sports, at St. Martinville. So it's football to basketball to track. You never have an off season. So for him, this is the first year he's ever going to have an off season. So physically, that's going to help him. I think I've said this to you guys before, people don't understand how technical playing receiver is. And last year, he'll be the first to tell you, he was just out there. He was just running around trying to figure it out. Well, now he understands kind of where he fits and why we're doing what we're doing. He was just so talented last year that we felt we needed to play him. This year, I think he needs to become a more polished receiver and understand he's got a ton of tools. He's really talented. When do you use them? Why do you use them? How do you use them? And you see, today was a tough day, right? Really good practice. It was a tough one for those guys, and he competed really well. At the end of the day, he's making plays at the end of the day. So that's where you see him grow up a little bit. And, to me, it's as much of it's out there as he wants. As hard as he's willing to work for it, I think it's there for him. So, we're pushing him. Fortunately, he's a guy that likes to be pushed. He likes to be coached. He wants to be in those situations. So when you have guys that are like that, you end up getting a pretty good product in the end.
You're an old tight end coach and an offensive play caller, so you know how important the tight ends are in your offense. Obviously, we saw what Terrence did last year as a receiver, which Dave and I are giddy about for the future. But what about...
Just so I know, right?
Yeah. Okay. Y'all...
You already know.
Yeah, sure.
But y'all lost some key blockers, guys who... even Neil last year had become a good blocker. But what about that part? What does that look like?
Yeah, you're right. The last 2 years, you've lost some really good players in that room, right? You go back to Johnny, and then you had, Neil and Pierce and Terrence, who's kind of rising, right, climbing the ladder, and then now you lose, Pierce and Neil, right? So, Terrence is working really hard at getting better at the blocking part of it. And I can tell you right now, blocking Antoine Bayless and Jordan Lawson and Ashley Williams and these guys that we're blocking, he's getting all he wants right there, and he's doing a good job. He's getting a lot better in that space, and we need him to continue to get better there. The 3 other guys that are really kind of competing in there, Rhett Guidry, he's been a little bit in and out with some injuries, which certainly hurts. But we're really excited about the 2 freshmen too, Caden Jensen and Ty Stamey. And those guys flash, they really do at times. But they're young. And so we got to speed them up to, I like to play in 12 personnel. That's a big part of what we do. A lot of our throw game comes out of that stuff, right? So that's a big part of what we do. And those guys flash. They've got the ability to do it. It's going to be how far can we take them in the next 9 practices, right, and get them to the summer, where then we can start detailing some of those things, because both of those guys are really talented. And to be honest with you, they've got the ability to be really good players, and so they're just young, and they haven't played. So they flash, and I think Coach Munoz, this will be the first time he's really got a young room. He came in, had a veteran room, and did a great job with those veteran guys. So, right now he's we talk about intensity and urgency. He's up there with anybody, and Terrence is still young. So he's got so much development left that, it's kind of weird. You get pushed into an older veteran role as a sophomore. You've really got a lot of growing up to do too, but the room's really talented. It's going to be, again, the consistency level, that's where we got to get. I keep going back to it. Our highs were good last year, but it can't be up and down. And that's where, you get that whenever in that room, those guys have to be on it. When it's 4-minute offense and you got to finish a game, all right, you got to go run the clock out. They've got to be on it. They can't be off. They can't have a bad play. You know, I mean, when it's 3rd and 1, you know, you're on the goal line, whatever the case may be, right? Cost us a game last year. We've got to do a great job there. We got to, you know, do a great job in those positions. So we have guys that are capable. It's just going to be how fast can we speed them up. And certainly they're going to make mistakes early next year. You know, we all know that, but we just need to speed them up.
Which one right now would be the most capable of playing the most snaps as a primary block?
I would say Caden Jensen. You know, I mean, Caden's 6'6", 255 pound, you know, true Y. Ty is you know, 6'5", 240, but he's really more of an H move guy a little bit. But they both flash, you know. Caden, I would say going into it, you'd say that's the guy that's got the chance to be the Y. You know, certainly, you know, with Red, if we can kind of keep him healthy there. But, you know, that's the one, you know, he's the one that we're trying to push in that Y role right here to, you know, to get it done because we're going to need that.
How's the health so far this spring?
Oh God, we've been fortunate. You know, Jax Harrington had a foot sprain. You know, that's you know, we had it checked out. It's nothing serious, so we're kind of limiting him right now, coming back from it, which has been great because Caden Morrow has gotten a ton of snaps and really come a long way. Which he's a guy that we need to, right? You know, you start talking about, you know, you need to figure out 7, 8, and 9. You know, Caden's in there, right? You already figure him in one of those guys that should play a lot for us. King McGowan's kind of got a knee thing again, you know, which, you know, I mean, I've never felt so bad for someone in my life. You know, it'll be like a 10-week deal. He'll be okay. It's not a long-term thing, but you know, it's just tough, man. You know, he's just been through a lot, so you know, we're gonna get him through it. Jathan Caldwell's still out with an ACL. From last year, which, you know, that's not a surprise. And then other than that, it's really nothing significant, you know, for any amount of time. So we've been pretty good. Today was the first day with a couple guys that didn't finish, you know, with a shoulder and a hamstring. So it's been pretty minimal right now. Thankfully, we've still been able to go with 3 good groups, you know, and really get a lot of reps there, which has been great for the quarterbacks, you know, to get some of those young guys to be able to take full team reps. It's been good for them too.
We had Cam in here last week or whenever that was, and he just kind of smiled when we talked about how his role is more of a pass rusher kind of. Are you seeing signs where y'all could get more pressure on the quarterback without having to do a lot of criticism?
You know, I love this D-line group that we have, and I love what we're doing right now, you know, with getting into a little bit more 4 down, letting those guys play on a half a man instead of trying to 2-gap and do those things, even in the odd front, 1-gap movements instead of trying to either long stick or 2-gap, you know, like let those guys play to their strengths. And, you know, one thing, you know, Coach Salgado and them, you know, they had a pretty good pass rush package on 3rd downs, and some of it's games, some of it's straight rushes. But, you know, the thing is that you got some guys that are talented. And last year, you know, we talked a lot about that defensive line. At times they flashed, right? You saw some really good things from them. And I think we kind of got towards the end of the year on defense where we started playing a little bit more odd front, and we kind of trying to not give up some negatives and things like that. So it didn't lend to us going and creating negative plays, which, you know, right now, you know, that's our philosophy is you got to force the issue on defense up front, you know, with your front 7, go force it on the back end. You make sure things don't break, you make sure things don't get out, but you cut those guys loose and let them go play. And we've got some guys that are playing pretty good up front. And Cam Whitfield, you know, last year, you know, I mean, he caught fire there for a little while in the middle of the year. We've got to find a way to be able to continue to do that, right? To be able to mix up 4 down and odd, to be able to mix up bringing pressure from the field and the boundary and single plugs and, you know, and 4 from a side, things like that, to let those guys play where, you know, there's a lot of straight rushes and there's a lot of, you know, play a half a man, play a gap, and then all of a sudden you switch gaps and you go, you know, and you get the offensive line kind of on their toes a little bit. I think that's where the difference comes from. And right now I think we have a good mix of we're playing the run, we're playing it all straight up, we're doing these things, we know where the fits are, and then all of a sudden we're bringing a pressure, we're mixing it in, we're getting some movement. It happens fast with those guys. So, yeah, we've got to let those guys play. We've got good players there. You know, we've recruited a good group of kids, and right now, I mean, they're flying around the last couple of days, so it's fun to see.